Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have Ali Fraser, who I spelt your name wrong on my story the other day, and we had this conversation. We must share with the listeners. We like a bit of banter. That you and China are like, what name is Ali? Why did my parents call me this? Do you have any more context?
So it's like, so my mum wants me to, so I'm called Alistair. My mum wanted Alistair because it couldn't be shortened. She obviously hasn't got that much of too many brain cells. It's like Ali. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't great growing up. Like during school, especially being from Liverpool, it's like most people were called Carl, Mike. It's like, but I don't mind it now as much, and also like I'm old enough now to take the piss out of myself. It's like I don't really care. To be honest.
Why not?
Yeah. It's like it's. I don't look like my name doesn't really fit my face. I should look like I should be like an accountant or something like that, or an IT manager.
But then
Not
you're
like
Jack.
an online coach.
Love it. So today we're going to be talking about reversing out. And before we jumped on, like I said to you, it's a subject that I wanted to get someone that was personable, someone that would be honest about this, because there's, of course, so much misconception in bodybuilding anyway. Now, when it comes to reversing out, there's so many different ways people do it. It's hard to say there's right and wrong because we all do it differently, but it was really nice to hear China talk about on the pod how you helped her, especially with food behaviors and this type of stuff in off season. So thank you so much for coming on today, because I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for having me on. I'm really excited about it.
It's going to be sick. So it's hard to know where to start with reversing out, isn't it? Of course, I'm sure you're of the same thinking that the reverse out is something you would speak about before, maybe even before the prep starts, or before, of course, the show, with as much time as possible when you're dealing with athletes.
Mm-hmm. So I think the thing about reversing out is, say if you know the client and you know the client well, you've already got data in regards to potentially their eating habits. So this is where you made a good point before. There's so many ways to do it. And you've just got to do the best way for the client, because the word optimal gets thrown around a lot. And I love the word optimal, right? Because it's like we should try and be optimal, but that is going to vary so much from a lot of other factors. Now, if you want to talk about, say, like China's experience in regards to like the reversing out process, was like that's the leanest China's ever been.
Yeah.
It's not the leanest she'll ever be, but it was the leanest she's ever been. It was her first ever proper prep. So her ability to then just flip a switch and go back to sort of like an improvement phase and like that, it was obviously going to come across with like loads of challenges. And the hard thing is when, especially like we're going to talk a little bit about females as well, and especially males as well, it's like it's health has to be the priority then. It's like you've done your stage, you've got on, you've had striations in your glutes. It's like you've got to now start thinking of the future and health, because and again, progression as well. Like you staying in that condition isn't going to help with the progression, especially if you want to compete the following year. But as I'm sure you've seen as well, people can really fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I do believe in having somewhat of a structure. I don't like the thought process of like, no, you can't make clients food focused and you can't tell them what to do. It's like, I do feel like as a coach, you still should have some kind of responsibility. Don't get me wrong, post-show, I think me and him went for a burger in Finland. And that was cool. Like it was really, really cool. But then getting back onto it, there still needs to be a routine to somewhat, because think about it as well. You've been on prep for 20 something weeks with a solid routine. Like you feel lost if you haven't got some kind of structure. And then it's just a timing process, and it's when the penny drops. But that penny drop could be 1 week. Like I'm very good at reversing out. It's like I know what I need to do. Put me to 400 grams carbs, 60 grams fat, 250 grams protein, and I can stay at that for 4 to 6 weeks. But I'm not a foodie. Like I don't give a shit about food.
Okay.
It's like I like, so if we went for a meal, I like the company, not necessarily the food.
Yeah, the experience.
Yeah. Whereas if people are foodies and they love food, it's a completely different scenario then. So again, this way again, I think it's massively important to understand the individual. China's a foodie. He likes food. So it's trying to get that passion that she has for that back in her life, but at the same time, not letting it ruin her future.
Yeah,
And that's where communication and just honesty and comes into it massively. And I think just the stigmatism of like not being able to talk about it if you find things hard, or telling your coach that you might want a few more calories, or you've had something and then keeping it away from them, so they don't know why your weight's spiking.
Yeah.
There's loads of conversation need to have, and then obviously you got the ped protocols and all that shit, which is hard. Again, we've discussed, like, I think it's hard for females than males when it comes to peds.
Yeah, it's very difficult because, like I said to you, this is part of a massive driver for me having the podcast, because there's so much out there that doesn't get talked about, and especially things like social media, it's absolute mind warp. Like we said before we jumped on about how bikini even has evolved. When I first started out, I thought everyone was natural, and I'm thinking, well, that's achievable, and I was natty for a big portion of my bodybuilding career, and the aspirations I had were not realistic because girls were on PEDs, and that's only got more competitive, more use. And then if you are looking at that route, it's like, where the fuck do you start? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a good thing, because, like, when you bring that up, I think people need to be aware of actually what is achievable. Like, I'll talk about the first time I met China.
Yeah.
Like, we went on a date, we walked around Otterspool, Liverpool, and then about a week later, we went back to hers, and she took her top off, and I thought, I'm keeping my top on. And it was like, and like, when you can see, because she didn't even train properly.
Yeah.
Like, she trained stupid.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't train hamstrings for most of her prep because she didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if someone can look like that by being so sporadic, imagine what that person can look like being structured. And then that's why because I was with Cal at the time, that's why I went to Cal saying, have you got any space? He went, why? I went, and just sent a picture. He went, yes. And it's like, you can see that, but unless you're of that caliber,
Yeah,
being natural and doing very, very well, the likelihood is most people are having some kind of assistance.
yeah.
And people need to be aware of that, because, as you said, if you've got this vision of you looking like X and then you don't reach that, you'll be very, very disheartened.
Yeah. And it's hard to know where to start. I get people message saying, I'm natural at the moment, but I'm considering going down the assisted route. And, maybe they've spoken to their coach and their coach doesn't know much about it. And this is definitely something in the industry, and people are led on the wrong path. I've spoken about this on the pod. People go to the gym and, the gym owner's like, why don't you jump on this Canavar or whatever? And there's no education behind that. And I find that so hard, because then people are going down the route of potential virilization and different things that they don't know about.
I've got a specific view on this in regards to, if you're going to put something in your body, you should do your own research. Like, that is your responsibility. But also, if you respect and trust someone, you respect and trust someone. So it's they should take responsibility if they're going to give you something, to actually explain what it does and tell you the pros and cons and durations, etc. But you, as the person, should also delve into it. That's a good thing about when we talk about this stuff. It becomes more open and more transparent about what people do.
Yeah.
And then everyone else, because I do think people do need to start talking about it, because girls especially, are starting to compete younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
And the standard's so high, they want to fast forward the process. And that probably does mean potentially going to take primo. It does mean that they're probably going to run fem test. It does mean they might run anabar towards the end of it. It's like, it's a big decision to make at such a young age.
Risk reward as well.
And it's like, and this is where it's very, very debatable. It's like, if you're not good enough, and you're not good enough, and you're not good enough, it's like, is it worth it? Now, if you want to just see what you're capable of, 100% it's worth it. Because, like, that's me. It's like, I'm never turning pro. It's like, I'm not. But I want to see what the best capability I can be. And that's why I will push things within my health, like, parameters. But I will. But I don't potentially want kids at this moment in time in life.
Yeah. This is what I love personally about physique development. Like, I got to a point where I was natural, where it was like, I want to see a bit more here.
Yeah.
Like, I'd done well in the sport and whatever, and it was like, I want to see it. And it genuinely excited me the first time I sort of pinned, and everything was like,
yeah.
this is super cool. And it still fascinates me so much now. And actually, for me, being a female that competed naturally back-to-back shows every year, my test was absolutely fucked. My, T3, T4 was in the gutter. I had problems with one of my kidneys and all of these things that, again, it's something that people maybe don't talk about as much. And then you throw PEDs in the mix that are, well, you don't know about, and you're taking different quantities and whatever else. And there's so much to consider, and if you do it from a point of education, at least you've got, like, that's what I needed to learn first. It was like, what is the risk reward? Is it going to be worth it? Okay, I'm going to give it a go, and went all in. But there's also so many different models as well, isn't there, depending on who you're coached by.
Yeah, and if you look at the male way, like there's a Victor Black model, isn't it? Like that's getting thrown around a lot right
The
now. I'm
Sophie
definitely not gonna.
model.
I
Yeah,
hope he doesn't block me on Instagram and all this shit. It's for me, it's like because like I'm still friends with Cal, and like he got called out last week or something like that, and I
yeah,
think it's childish and pathetic. Like Cal's doing way too well to give a shit about what he's saying.
yeah,
But like again, when there's so many models as well, and that's why I do respect the likes of Joe Jeffrey, John Jewett has brought out a female thing which I've bought about
yeah,
like female prep, and it's like it's giving because it's very there's loads of data on lads, isn't it? Like what lads can do. Most lads start off with test, then they
yeah,
might have primo, and
yeah,
then if they're feeling risky, they might have a bit of a 19 law in there towards the end. And the strategy that has been comprised, that has been sort of built up over years of other people doing it.
yeah,
Like JP was the first person, wasn't he? JP was the first person who brought up his website and started talking about this quite openly. Females need to have that now.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's because it like me talk about conversations and risk and reward. Like if it wasn't worth it, it's like don't probably risk it.
Yeah, and exposure time as well for females, something
100%.
like primo. You know, my exposure time was going to be 4 weeks when I last did it for this off season as my
Yeah.
first exposure. We extended it to 6 weeks because I felt good, extended my training to a 6 week block and etc. etc. But it's all an open dialogue. It's working out, is that worth it to extend it a little bit more, but no more than 6 weeks was agreed by my coach. And it's like, you know, if you're informed and it's okay, can we push it a little bit more? Then you can do that. But exposure time, it does need to be monitored in females, you know.
Especially if you're doing a show and then doing a show that leads onto another show,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's like because it does need to be mapped out.
Mm, mm.
It's like lads to some degree, you just stay on it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like that's because like that's what most of us do. Is like we don't have to come off to go back on, we just stay on it, especially if we're going through a prep.
yeah.
So again, this is why if you're working with a coach and a female who's listening to this, it's like make sure things are mapped out and timed out, and don't then do what some lads do. It's like, that's right, I'll just stay on for another week. You don't have the luxury really to be able to just do that,
Yeah,
or
it's
just don't give yourself
discipline.
a little bit more
Yeah.
because you want to feel a bit more jacked that day. It's like it's not worth it.
Yeah, it is. Like, I, again, back to that excitement, you know, when I extended it from 4 to 6 weeks and said to my coach, can we do this? It was like, I want to do a little bit more within what I can sort of get away
Mhm.
with per se. And it was like, that genuinely excites me. And I always talk about this on the pod, you know, finding your why and why are you competing? Because you actually touched on it there, and it's very, very relevant with if you're competing and, you know, you need to be realistic. Your coach needs to be realistic with you. Are you going to be good enough to turn pro? Are you going to be good enough to be competitive? Because some people aren't, you know, it's not their fault, but there is genetics, it's a subjective sport, and it's very, very competitive now. But I think sometimes coaches maybe don't, they sort of stray away from giving that truth, you know?
I completely agree. Like China doesn't know why I compete. She can't get in her head.
Yeah.
Like it's just like she competes to win.
Mm-hmm.
Like if she couldn't win or she wasn't good enough to win, she wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So and this is why again, like knowing your why is by far the most important thing because you're putting yourself through hell.
Yeah.
Like if anyone's prepping and listening to this, it's shit. It's
Yeah.
like it's fun and it's the best experience you'll ever go through in regards to like you'll learn so much about yourself. But it's not easy, right? It's really, really not easy. But if your why isn't strong enough,
Mm-hmm.
you won't get to the end. It's like it's what your why and your passion and your desire to reach whatever goal you're setting to achieve will drag you through them dark times. Especially when you're putting like things in the microwave when you should go in the fridge and you're getting into your car and you're forgetting how to drive. It's like
Where's
all
my
this shit that
remote
happens in
control?
prep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like all this shit that happens, like, and you think to yourself, like, why the fuck am I doing this to myself? Like, you're a bitch with your partner. You don't have any friends because you just got rid of all your friends in them 20 weeks. It's got to be worth it.
Mm,
I
mm,
said, like China, if China was in my position with my genetics, she wouldn't compete
mm.
with her mindset because she would have to do it to win. Whereas I do it because I just love it. I love the community. Sorry, I love the random conversations you have with people on Instagram. Just the random like nice conversations. I think the sport has got Don't get me wrong, it's got some negatives,
Yeah.
100%. But I think it's got so many positives that outweigh that, because we're all a little bit messed up. No,
Yeah.
to love doing this, we're all a little bit messed up. So it's nice to be around people who messed up, because when you go out in the normal world, we are weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And it's
actually
like, it is nice to be around like,
Yeah, I talk about this, like I'm like, I want to be weird. Like I want to be the person eating out of Tupperware and people thinking,
yeah,
does she have to do that? And when they ask me, it's taken time over the years of doing it, but I used to get asked all the time, do you have to eat that? Why are you eating that? Are you eating the same as you ate yesterday? Now I just say, I'll do what I'm doing. You do what you're doing.
yeah. But people can't get in the heads, can they? Like, people from the outside world can't get in the heads. Like, why can't you just have this slice of pizza? It's like, because I can't. Like, I don't have to explain to you, I just can't. And again, this is like getting back to the reversing out and getting back to like the original conversation. It's like, okay, if you're going to go again, it's like, why do you want to go again? Because if again, it's like, if you've got a process, are you going to take a 2 year off season? Are you going to do a short improvement phase? So again, like, for me, these all come into the reversing out processes as well, because you have to, if you're going to prep again quite soon, I potentially would want them to be a little bit more methodical coming out of it, because you've got less time to mess around with things. If someone's not going to compete for 2 years, I'm not going to say you've got more time to get away with things, but the time frame isn't as short. But for me, again, it's all about just managing the client's psyche as well. And again, I can reference China within this. Like, China didn't struggle. She might have said she didn't struggle. She struggled more probably from a putting weight on perspective. Like, she put on a little bit of weight quite quickly from where she was. But again, what I think females sometimes need to understand is, like, you're not supposed to have striations in your glutes. Like, you're not supposed to be that lean. Like, you're supposed to carry more body fat than men. So it's like, you may accumulate a little bit more body fat quicker than the males, and that is okay. And it is okay. And the thing was, we went to Anglesey. I think, like, the story, I can remember, we went to Anglesey. She was just struggling a little bit with me potentially being a little bit more strict, because, like, I was supposed to prep and I pulled out because I was unwell.
Okay.
And I was still trying to be a little bit more controlled. So I was still with Cal at the time, and I just messaged Cal saying, look, Cal, can I just put my food up? Just so obviously then me and China could just eat a little bit more regularly together. And again, like, people go, oh, that's nice. It's like, in the reality of this world, right, it's like, China's going to be a lot better than what I ever am. Like, people keep going to, when you want to prep next, it's like when China's done hers. Because she's the priority at the end of the day. When it comes to sport, she's the priority. Doesn't mean she's the priority in, like, our relationship in regards to, like, how we are, but in the sport, it's like, here, she trumps me. End of. It's like, she's got a chance to reach the 1% to the 1%. Like, and she wants it as well. So it's like, I can wait another 6 months to step on stage or start dieting stage. And again, when it comes to people who are in relationships and when it comes to competing, it can be difficult. And prepping at the same time is really hard.
Yeah,
It's
trying to mention
really,
this.
yeah, it's really, really hard, because, tell a lie, it was great, because I didn't think, for the first time ever, I never thought about my prep.
Yeah.
Never thought, because it was just like, okay, what does China need? What does China need? What does China need? And, like, because I wasn't thinking about me and being self-critical of me and whatnot, it was piss easy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But then it got to the point where, like, she finished prep, and then it was like, shit, I've got to think about me now. And then it was like a lot of stress just hit me at once. But again, prepping at the same time, you've got to understand that there's got to be give and take, and the expectation of your relationship is going to change. The dynamic is going to change. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but then when it comes to the reversing out of it, it's like, you've got to work together as a team. And again, when it comes to health, if you think your partner is working with a coach and you have a decent, like, I've got a decent relationship, I've got a very good relationship with Cal. I think Cal would appreciate if I sent him a message about China, because he knows I'm coming from a caring place. He respects me as a coach as well. And again, if you can build that relationship up with the coach, and you then feel more at ease with what your partner's doing, and then it makes the process so much easier, because if there's any bit of tension when food's still a bit low and you're just coming out of a competitive season where, let's be honest, we're all very, very strict and rigid, it's like, it does make things a lot easier. I think that was the biggest thing, was just changing China's mindset to just chill a little bit more and just enjoy a little bit more. Because
Yeah,
I said,
because the
like,
goal's removed, isn't it? It's like you touched on earlier, you're gunning for this show date, and whether you're doing multiple shows or you've just got the one, that date is solidified in your mind, and you get there, you do the show. And I talk from experience, whether you win, place top 3, or you don't place at all, you still feel pretty much the same the next day, but it's going to be a slightly different experience. But you're still sat with, you wake up and you think, oh, okay, so I'm still the same person. What do I do now?
Yeah.
It's just mental. And the thoughts and feelings you go through, it's so individual, but there's definitely things that we could probably touch on that most people will go through, you know, an array of thoughts and feelings depending on how you get on. But of course, what hunger hormones are going to do, that type of stuff would be quite useful to touch on.
Yeah, in regards to like left and ground still being a little bit skewed. And again, this is why I think structure is massively important.
Yeah.
Because if this is the first time you've ever dieted and it's the leanest you've ever got, and then people go to you, okay, just go back to eating whatever you want, and you're a foodie, you're fucked.
Yeah. Mental.
You're fucked. It's like, you can't stop. Like I said, like I'm quite lucky in regards to, like, I've never really been a bit foodie, so I've never really binged or gone over the top on food, really, because I'm quite lucky in regards to, well, lucky or not lucky, I'm just not a foodie kind of person.
Yeah.
But I've definitely seen people eat and then eat and then eat, and again, it's just not managing that. It's sort of like it's not taking responsibility for what you're doing. And again, I think that's where, again, you should always have a coach post comp. You should stay with your coach. You shouldn't get rid of your coach, because again, there needs to be that structure. And again, with like left in the ground being a little bit skewed, where society is telling you that you're not full, but you are full technically, because Grellin's still saying the appetite's really, really high. It's like, you need to start just eating a little bit more food, but still say eat 4 meals a day, but then potentially once a week off for a meal with your partner. Person dependent. Person dependent, because again, like, this way, it's a very, very hard conversation. But like, look, the simple thing is, you're going to be more hungry. Okay, you're going to want more food. You're going to be still tired, and you're still going to potentially want to do cardio, even though you don't want to do cardio, even though you shouldn't be doing cardio.
Legit.
Training wise, take a week off. Like, just take a week off. Like,
some people take longer than that as well, don't they?
Yeah. It's like, just to take some time away from the gym. And again, like, just that, these are the key things I'd say. Get a reality back in regards to some kind of structure with a little bit more food, but potentially have a little bit more freedom with food in regards to going for meals out. Okay, but don't be an adult, and still make sure they're structured and pre-planned in. Take time away from training. Like, take time away from training. Like, if you want to still go into the gym, but potentially don't stick to a split. Just go in and do something that you want to do, but I'd stay away from training to failure. And then in regards to like socializing and whatnot, because we haven't spoken about sleep yet.
Yeah, this would be interesting.
Sleep will be skewed. It's like, it's taking that body away from this sympathetically driven place, because China's very, very sympathetically driven. So her ability to flip into parasympathetic isn't great. Like, China's prep was out-drug the drug, essentially. It was waking up, taking modafinil so she could focus. I don't know if she covered this, but I might as well tell everyone. Going to work, doing a day job, then getting herself psyched up, and then taking something to help her sleep. Because her sleep was awful. She was sleeping like 3 hours, 4 hours a night. And most people are going to suffer with sleeping prep.
Yeah, I don't think I've met anyone that hasn't had some sort of, disruption.
I've met someone who went from 8 hours to 6, and I was like, are you still taking the piss?
I don't know how people sleep like 9-10 hours in a prep. I'm like, huh? I've never had that.
It's like, all you're doing is getting up and having a piss.
Yeah.
Every fucking hour. And again, it's getting that sleep pattern, like we were talking about sleep hygiene, sleep routine before. Get back, just get to sleep, because it's still going to take time to kick in, but get that back in. And then in regards to pedus, like, consult with your coach. But it's like, be very, very careful in regards to potentially staying on things for longer than you potentially have to, because you're trying to magically grab this rebound phase. I still think like the rebound's a little bit magical. Like, I still think there's something within it, but potentially come off what you're coming off, again, time well with your coach. If you're taking thyroid, I would wean your way off that. Personally, I have kept T4 all through, mainly because the research says there's nothing really negative with doing it.
Same.
But it's like, it's still in my head. It's still like, I'm still taking something that I might not need to take, especially my knee not competing for a little bit. But you might need to be able to keep 4 in. If you're using GH, you can keep that in. That's not going to do anything. But it's, for me, as I said before, get blood work done, see what's off, but can get it back in range. But not just in range, get it back to a good, healthy range, because there's in range via the doctors, but then there's also sort of like optimal range of what we should be.
The physique.
And that's something I would definitely do. But it's like, for me, health, sleep comes into health. Get your mental state back to where you want it to be as well. Because if you are someone who socializes a lot, you've got to bring that back into your life. If you're a bit of a hermit, you can stay a bit of a hermit.
Yeah. And you talked about PD use for stims. I went up to the highest dose really for me. And I think for most people, 120 on Clen, and then I was on your Himbine as well.
Yeah.
And like that obviously disrupts sleep as well. But
100%.
I look back and I think, Christ, I was, batshit crazy. And then after the show, went down to 80, went down to 40, and titrated it out rather than like Tom, my coach, was like, you don't really want to go from 0 to hero to 0. Like it's about adjusting and going back to, taking cardio out, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Cardio is, of course, very relatable to people that are trying to still stay lean and maybe self-restrict after eating more food. And it's a vicious cycle, which is something it's so common in this sport. You try and hang on to that stage lean condition. And I talk from, experience as well. I'm not saying I've never done that. And you get in this mind warp of, I've eaten more food. So what I'll do is I'll do 3 hours cardio. I won't eat the next day. Then I'll eat more food. It's absolutely mental, isn't it?
And I think this is why when it comes to competing, I think if you love competing, everyone, you should compete. Okay. But I think potentially if you're getting into competing for the wrong reasons, these are things like what you just said then, where it's like, I've eaten a little bit more food, I've had a pizza when I shouldn't have had a pizza, and then you're going to go on the Stairmaster for 2 hours the following day. It's like the body doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
You can't outwork, you can't just like outwork yourself. And also just accept that you might make a mistake.
I love that. That's such a good point. And this is what I've learnt myself. I'm allowed to make mistakes.
Especially when you're fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like as we said before, like you put something in the microwave and it's supposed to go in the fridge. It's like you ever like when you're pushing your body to them extreme levels, and it is an extreme sport, everyone needs to understand it's an extreme sport. It's like it's not something everyone should be doing.
Yeah.
You're pushing, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. We try and do it on our health in the healthiest way, but it's not healthy.
Exactly what I said.
So I don't get why everyone bashes it because it's not healthy. It's like we know it's not healthy.
Yeah, and we do that with intent.
Yeah. So, but it's like you're okay to make a mistake, and it's just accept the mistake, learn from the mistake, and then if it's something that happens again, is there something you can put in place so you can monitor it a little bit better? Because you're not a robot. Unfortunately, we're not robots. Like we've got feelings. Like for example, you might have had an argument with your partner, and you're already in the stress state. You're just on your training session. Your training session is shit 'cause you're still weak. And then it's like, fuck you, then I'm just going to fucking go and have a tub of Ben and Jerry's.
And
It's
then
like,
don't stop.
yeah, and it's like, okay, cool, look, I shouldn't have done that. You probably shouldn't have done that, but you have. Move on. Get back into the routine, get back into structure the following day, and go, okay, cool. Next time I have an argument with your partner, because you probably still have an argument with your partner at some point, it's like, okay, I know I feel like this, because I'm a big believer in like mindfulness now and all this. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I fucking wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the most hippie shit ever, but I'm a big thing. It's like, the whole like check in with yourself. Like, how did it make you feel? Okay, do you actually feel like that? Or is it just like an emotion that sort of come on at that moment in time? And how did you feel when you had the ice cream last time? Could you have just had half the tub instead of the whole tub? And again, this is where it's so personal, individualized, because if you still want to have half the tub, have half the whole tub, but then don't moan about having half the tub.
Yeah. And if you're doing something with a preconceived idea, it helps you to go, if you are planning ahead and you're going to go, well, actually tonight I'm going on a date night with my partner, say, and we're going to have a tub of Ben and Jerry's and whatever else. And if you've had that intent, then you can go into that experience with more confidence. But it's then having, like you say, that mindfulness to go, that's what I'm going to have, and that's where I'm going to stop, which is often where the problem begins, isn't it?
And then I think that's where people, when they're coming post show, like, when you're being a bit more mindful about the meal places that you might go to.
For sure.
Don't go to an all you can eat buffet.
Yeah, it's deadly.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more harder to go, that's that. Whereas if you go to a restaurant where you might get a starter, main, dessert,
Mhm.
you know you're just having your starter, main, dessert, then you're not gonna go back to fucking Tesco and get 5 cookies because you've told yourself you're gonna have that. But it's a lot harder when things are free to just help yourself.
Yeah,
And again, it's all about what we've just been speaking about there, just about being a little bit more self-aware of where your weaknesses are and limitations.
for sure.
So again, which you'll find out in prep.
Mhm.
You find out like what you're craving and what you can't wait to do, and just making sure you manage them. But also, if it's your first prep, understand that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fuck up, and when you go into your next one, just use that as data and take it back. And like this is where China didn't really enjoy their prep. She found it very, very hard. I don't know how open she was on the podcast.
She said about that. Yeah,
Like,
her one of her goals for this prep is to enjoy it.
and that's the goal. Enjoy it because look, she's going to look shit hot anyway.
Yeah, she's gonna look sick. I'm hyped.
It's going to be like she's going to look shit hot. She'll do exactly what Cal will tell her to do.
Yeah.
Like she used the analogy, I think she might have used in the podcast. If Cal told her to stand outside with 1 foot on Tesco, she would have stood outside Tesco with 1 foot. If it meant she burned calories for some bizarre reason, that's nailed. It's like how I like to put it is you're in this privileged position where you're the 1% of the 1%. Most people kill to be in your shoes, to have your genetic structure. Now, if you've ever seen her train, nobody trains like her.
Mm.
I will happily put like that. Like, could she train better with execution? In my opinion, this is what I teach, so I'm going to say yes. But nobody will do what she does. Like, there's not many females who put 180 on a bar. There's not many females who put 7 plates aside in a hack squat. It was the first time we done a training session together in a gym, and I done 3 plates, I think, and she put 2 plates and moved that easy. I was like, she hasn't touched anything by this time. I thought that's quite sick. And then she done 2.5, and I was like, you can fuck off now because that's nearly by my weight. And it's like, but she's always been strong.
It's mental what she does.
But for me, it's not necessarily the fact that she does the exercise; it's the fact that she puts the weight on the thing to think she can do it. And that's again where nobody will outwork her. So like that's that. But like I said, she's in the 1% of you're privileged to be in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Because loads of people will kill to be in your position.
Mm.
And in my opinion, it's her right to enjoy it.
Yeah. It
It's
is
like
one
you
of
should
those.
other people.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, that gets thrown around. It should be really hard, so you should not enjoy it. You've got to be going to war every day. You've got to be in the gutter, and it's like I say this on the pod all the time. Like, you ain't going to war. You're going and having a nice warm shower after.
It's like it's the
It's like,
going to war. It's like look, I get it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to train really, really hard, but it's like it's not fucking war, is it?
yeah, I know.
You're not having a fight with a hack squat. It's like yeah, I completely get what you mean though. It's like it is hard, and it is hard, right? But you can't stop
Yeah,
any point. So you're not going to war. You're not doing anything fucking miraculous. You're not fucking curing things. You're not doing surgery. You're just trying to get the best out of you, and it's very selfish what you're doing because it is all about you.
mm.
So it's like don't think you're doing it for other people because you're not. You're
No,
doing it for you,
and a lot
and
of people don't give a shit anyway what you've put into
that's
it.
the best one. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Nobody actually gives a fuck.
no, literally.
No, especially people outside the industry. They don't give a fuck. They think you're stupid
Yeah.
for what you're doing. But yeah, like that's one China's goal is to actually enjoy the process, enjoy because like we went down to Cal's loads. We like and like I can remember the day where it was me, Cal, China, Loki, Mark Hector was there, Kerry Saxon was there. It was one of them days where it's like this is fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like Mark Hector was helping me pose, like everyone was around China watching her pose, and she doesn't really remember it that well. The only reason she probably really remembers it is because there's photos.
Yeah.
And it's like there's not many people who, and that's why like I'm very lucky to be with someone like China. It's like there's not many people who are exposed to these people.
It's sick.
And honestly, it's so cool. It's like she's going to get more opportunities like that. She should remember them, not just via a photo. Actually, remember the experience. Because honestly, mate, it was fucking boss. It was such a good day.
And for China as well, like, I love doing the pod with her because she's so humble about it, and that's what I love when I come across competitors. That when you look at her, I said to her, when people look at your Instagram, they're probably thinking, "Fucking hell!" Like, look at her physique, and then for her to be open and honest and say, "We actually touched on posing." She was like, "I don't like it, but I need to put more effort into doing it because I haven't done it enough." And it was like, you know, for someone listening that doesn't like posing as well, they're not alone. You know, there's certain parts of bodybuilding that we all find hard. Like most people will agree, the nutrition and training, you just crack the fuck on, but
Yeah.
posing is hard.
And you nailed it there. I said that to someone else before. It's like the hardest thing for prep for me is the mindset. It's like the mind games that you play with yourself. It's like, is this lean enough? Is this not lean enough? Like I remember I took photos outside China and Finland, and she goes, "I'm fat," and it's like, China, you've got striations everywhere. But it's like, but she's convinced she's fat.
It's
Like
like,
that's the hardest part is the mind games. But China, yeah, like I quite enjoy posing. I find quite, but putting you on a stage, it's completely different. Like
oh,
posing in front of a mirror is posing in front of a mirror. But when you've got so many people watching you, like China's not a yeah, China's not a confident girl in regards like you'd think she has a boss physique and all this. Like you put her in a training session, she's confident, but you put her on a stage by herself, she's not that way inclined, and it's something she has to work on.
mm, mm,
And it's again, it's like if you look at it's and I said it's quite humbling because you see someone with her physique, you think, fuck, wow, like she must think X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, she's a normal girl. Like that's the thing. That's what people need to realize as well. I was speaking to Robbie once more about this, and he was speaking to Samson, and Samson's just does with boss genetics. He's just a normal guy with boss genetics, and it's like so is China. She is a normal, lovely individual, as normal as she can get. She's from fucking Wigan.
mm,
She's got a fucking stupid accent. All she does is love candles. It's like she's just normal, right?
mm,
But she's just got this genetic gift. But yeah, she finds posing really, really hard.
mm,
And again, it might be like she's a bit of a perfectionist as well. So she wants everything to be perfect.
mm.
But yeah, it's hard posing because you have to hide your weaknesses and show your strengths. That's essentially what posing is. Like, because you don't want to show your strength, your weakness off. And
Yeah,
it's be very clever. And I think for females as well, like depending on the category, you've got to have a bit of sass. You've got to sort of look like you own the stage. You've got to have confidence. And if you're not naturally confident, you've got to fucking fake it.
yeah, it's hard. Like that bit is hard if you're not naturally that way. But when you get on stage, it's gotta be immediate,
Yeah.
especially bikini when there's like 30 to 40 girls,
Yeah.
and you're like, fucking hell, how am I gonna stand out here?
Because I can remember the guy from Two Bros after the MK Classic in Wigan, Ian, who owns it, he came up to you and went, "You won that because of your physique. If you pose like that, you won't get your pro card."
Mm, mm,
And it was brutal, but it
yeah,
was true, and she needs to hear it. Because like she was shaking and she was nervous. Look, everyone's going to have nerves, but it's like if you do it enough, and it is, you nailed it before. It's like it's an act.
it's habit, yeah.
It's you're putting on a performance. You're acting. That might not be you, but that's who you fucking got on stage. And especially like if there's like 30 or 40 of you, like you say, bikini, it's like you've got to do something to stand out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's why I think female category. I think bikini is a very, very hard category.
Yeah, it's tricky as well because the sport is so subjective. And I did two different federations last year, and they were looking for complete
Yeah,
opposite things. And then even from the regional to the finals, completely different physiques got awarded. And if again back to when we spoke about finding your why, like that, them leading into a reverse out and a post show. I know what I wanted to do this prep, and I did it, and I was happy with the placings. You know, well, yeah, I was objective about it, and what have you. You know, spoke to my coach and whatever. But then, you know, if you're not used to this subjectivity in the sport and you think, oh, I've poured everything into my prep, I've got a real good shot, and you maybe don't know enough about the sport, the reverse out, like I touched on earlier, can be all levels of fucked up. And this is where having a coach and people in your corner that you can be honest with is so crucial, isn't it?
I think when we say people in your corner, it's people in your corner to call out your bullshit.
For sure.
And it's like you've got to have a strong network of people, whether that be family, whether that be friends, or whether that just be your coach as well, if you've got a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
To say, look, you're being a dick here. And so like because like the world is a little bit too hairy fairy now, in my opinion. It's like you're not allowed to hear people's feelings and all this bullshit. It's
Amen.
like look, facts. I like facts, don't care about feelings. It's like if someone's doing something and it's not helping them towards their goals, like don't be afraid to tell them. How they take that is then on them, but at least you've had the respect to tell them that what they're doing potentially isn't right for who they are.
Mhm.
And again, it's a very good point that as well, because when you go into your first show, I keep referencing first timers here because people
Yeah,
are a
but
bit more experienced. They
yeah,
sort of get it. But like if you're going to your first show and you think you should win it because you've worked really, really hard, it's like guess what? The 50 other athletes up there have worked really, really hard too.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why I think as a coach as well, you've got to manage the expectations because like someone might be very, very good, but you nailed it before this podcast come on. You don't know who's fucking standing next to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just unfortunate. Like that person might just have that genetic ability a little bit more, and you still work just as hard, but you might just have that. And then you've got to look at yourself critically and go, okay, cool. What do I need to improve on? Like you might need a bit more glutes, you might need a little bit more delt. And then that's where you go back to the drawing board. But again, they said, like, knowing your why, it's like, okay, I'm doing this because I want to achieve this. My friend Ben said this. He went, he doesn't give a fuck what 5 fat judges say about him. He wants to create the physique he wants to create. Yeah. And I love that. It's like, if a judge goes to me and goes, oh, look, your rear delt's a little bit small there. It's like, I don't care. He's like, I work hard on my quads and hamstrings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you're not going to win anything or you're not going to get a pro card. It's like, create the physique you want to create and want to present. And then that could be a very strong why. You go back, you stand on stage, you get your photos, and it's like, this could have looked a little bit better. This could have looked a little bit better. Back to the drawing board, work on it. And then that should be a good enough motivation for you to then control that reverse out. Whereas if you're going, oh, fuck this, the judge didn't do this, the judge didn't do this, I'm not fucking doing this again. And then you go back and just going off the rails, you will put yourself in a bad position from a health perspective.
If you structure your reverse out in the way that we've sort of overviewed today, you can have, if you've got pretty shredded, you can have a sick rebound out. Like you said, it really excites you. For me, it does as well. It's sick.
Yeah. Like I understand the thought process, like where people go, you're not going to put on this amount of muscle. And look, I do understand it from a scientific point of view. But I went from 86 kilos with peeled glutes to 96 kilos with peeled glutes. Like there's something still there. Do you know what I mean? There is something about it. And I can't tell you what it is. Like I do feel like if you can manage that and you do it in a timely fashion and you stay structured with your nutrition and not be a dickhead, and you then relieve all the stress and go out and enjoy yourself and you sleep a little bit better, you structure your training from a volume point of view to potentially start tapering up volume from what you can recover from. I was speaking to Oscar about this when he come back from his prep last year. Last year? Yeah, last year it will be now, yeah. And it's like, these are all the little things that can be easily managed. But again, it is that mindset perspective of making sure that you understand where your weaknesses are. You spoke about it with your coach, managing that, because the training, as you said before, training, nutrition, that's obviously a little bit of a hard thing when you're reversing out it. That's what we do as our bread and butter. But yeah, in regards to like the ped side of things as well, it is hard sometimes giving them up.
Yeah. I
Like,
found there's a mixture of thoughts, isn't there? Like until I did an exposure to Primo at this point, which is like 6 months post show, I was like, I get excited about, what I'm doing with my PEDs, and then the Primo brought that excitement back. But I also had that element of when I was reducing Clen, Himbine, stuff like this, it was like, you're letting go of an element of prep that you've had for 6, 8, 10 months.
100. That's a good point. Actually, I think don't people get, because like I said, we're not robots, but we work like robots when we're in prep. It's like we get up at this time, we take our drugs at this time, we eat our first meal at this time, we go and do cardio, we go and train, we do our work, whatever you're in a 9 to 5 job or you're self-employed. Like we are very structured, and then that's why again, like we talk about taking cardio out and whatnot. It's like you've been doing cardio at this specific time for such a long period of time now that to suddenly take it out, say, what the fuck do I do at this time? And it's like, again, when you take Clen out, you take your Himbine out, you take your thyroid medication out, what are those protocols that you might be putting in there, whether you're taking some kind of pre-workout before you go do your cardio or whatever it may be. It's like you're breaking down a routine and structure that you've had there for 5 months. That is very difficult. And again, it's like coming up with something where it might be, okay, instead of me going to do my cardio now, I might go and get some steps. Instead of me taking my Clen and whatnot, I'm going to now, okay, cool, I'm going to make sure I use this time to potentially do something else. So you're still structured to some degree, but you're just putting other things in place so it doesn't come so foreign and you feel a little bit lost. One thing for me when it comes to prep as well, it's so anticlimactic. It's like once you step on stage, it's like, what's next?
For sure. Like
It's like
you're
you
like,
build this so it's like this, and it's like okay. And I think again, if people think it's just going to change your life, if it might do if you get a pro card or you win something or whatnot, but for the majority of people, it's just an achievement. And again, it's like next time it's to look better.
mhm, yeah. There's so much relevance on that point. We've said it a couple of times, to look better and improve. You easily get in this mind warp of competing, and I did it, like I touched on, 10 years. I did back to back every year, and the longest I did in off season phase was 10 months, which was the best amount of
Oh,
growth I got, and I came back much more competitive. But I was funneling so much unhappiness at that point in my life into bodybuilding. I just serially competed, and it wasn't to improve. I didn't give a shit about my health, and that's consequently why,
yeah.
everything was so fucked from doing it natural for so many years. And that was another motivation to go down the PD route. But I found the reverses out quite hard initially because I didn't want to put on weight. I wanted to stay lean, if I'm completely honest, and that is something that a lot of people do struggle with.
Yeah, because okay, here's the things, right? You feel like you look shit up, but you look ugly to your partner.
Yeah,
Like
you do.
no partner wants that amount of leanness. Like it's cool, don't get me wrong. Like it's but people outside of it, it's the kind of thing of like you feel like you look good, but you don't actually look good in the real world. It's like you putting on 5 kilos. It's like that's probably a very nice, healthier look for you, and probably will kind of. But it is so hard in regards to psyche to let go of the abdominals or let go of the separations in your quads or the striations in your delts. But again, for me, it's what's the goal? It's like if the goal is to be better, then you need to let go of that. And the quicker you can let go of that mindset, the more you can walk towards that goal at a bit of a faster pace. Whereas if you're holding on to it, you're just holding yourself back. But like when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about this like it's fucking easy. It's not.
Yeah,
It's really, really not. It's like I said, I'm good at rebounding out and all this, but the mental side I still find hard. Like I still took scales with me to Anglesey.
yeah, yeah.
Looking back on it now, I was walking outside in my boxies in this caravan, putting scales on like the only bit of concrete we had. And it's like nothing when you look at things logically, like nothing was really going to happen over them 3 days.
Mm,
But you think it's going to happen.
mm.
Like I'll be totally transparent. Like this is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. But we seem like we can be honest on this. When
Yeah.
China went to when China went to Finland, I took a syringe
Mm.
with me, got pulled by customs.
Oh
Okay.
shit.
The scariest moments in my fucking life. Like so, like I don't know if China told about like the fucking whole tragedy of getting to Finland. Like my
No.
flight got cancelled. China's went ahead. Okay, so China's on the plane. Mine, Cows, and 3 other athletes got cancelled. So we then had to fly to Malaga, stay over in Malaga airport, and then fly to fucking. I've got PTSD from Finland. Fly to whatever the fucking place was, Helsinki. Then go to Himalaya, and it's been a fucking 36-hour trek. I'm walking back, and then this guy just. I think because they knew there's a bodybuilding competition happening, they were just pulling people randomly. And I had one of them. I'm not saying I look like a bodybuilder, but I had one of them fucking bodybuilding bags under like the built by athletes.
Yeah.
And he just pulled me over and he went, "You got 8 in your suitcase?" I was like, "Nah." And then went through it, found it. And the moral of what I'm trying to say is like, logically, I was in Finland for 3 days. Me not jabbing myself up would not have happened. Nothing would have happened.
Yeah. Good
But
point.
you're in your own head. You feel like everything meticulously has to matter.
Mm, mm.
And post prep, you'll feel like the same way. It's like you need to make sure you weigh every gram of rice. Because that's what it's like, isn't it? Like you measure
Oh,
95, 50 grams of rice, like, or 51 grams of rice, oh shit, it needs to be 15. It's like you pick it out, it's like the reality of life, it doesn't actually matter. But when you're in that mindset, it really, really does. And for me, if you can start to let them things slide, so you go from 50 to it's 52, and it's like, oh, okay, or it's 150-gram chicken breast, but you're supposed to have 140, it's like, oh, okay,
yeah.
you can bring that back into life. I feel like personally will make that transition a little bit easier.
Yeah. And
But
Trina mentioned about, there was points where I think it was, she mentioned like the first time after the show where you properly went for like a sit down meal, and you were like, just order something that you want, that you look at the menu and
yeah,
go, that will
okay,
taste nice, and it's like that is removed for such a long period of time, like we've spoken about today. And then when I remember so many times I've looked at a menu and thought, I don't know what the fucking hell I want.
yeah. It's So I remember like when I first started dating China, she'd only buy steak.
Mm.
And it wasn't because she liked steak, because she's a foodie, remember?
Yeah.
She liked burgers, she liked pizzas, but she'd only order steak because, quote unquote, in that head, that was healthy. Okay.
Bodybuilder.
And it is like, it's if you want to be sensible at a restaurant, that is something to be sensible with. But I think the first thing I ever done to her was she was on a food plan for a long period of time, and I just fucking poured her a protein bar. I went, fucking eat that. Because it wasn't on a food plan, and she ate it. And then it's sometimes, so I said, like the penny drops. It's when you do something that's out of your norm and you realize nothing changes, you can then allow yourself to become a little bit more freedom. Like, I'm not someone who is like freedom with food and all this. Like, I'm not that, but I do think that there needs to be an off season and a prep phase where you can chill out a little bit more in your improvements off season, where on prep the lights on and you go for it. But yeah, in regards to, like, I think I'm trying to think, it might have been post Wigan. We just went out for something. We might not have actually went. It might have been what I said to you in Finland, where you could see she was umming and ahhing about where to go for a restaurant. I said, Jan, just fucking pick somewhere. Like, you like burgers, like, we're not going to go for sushi because we like sushi, but it's like sushi's still, like, quote unquote, still bodybuilding,
The
like, isn't
Rock.
it? Yeah. They said just choose, and she loves a burger. She loves a good burger, and it's like, just go for a burger. And again, it's sometimes it is the client's responsibility. I do as a partner. I think it's like sometimes your responsibility as well to, like, not be afraid to just fucking make your partner do something that they're a little bit nervous of doing. And there's something else I would say, like, look, it's just try, because if it doesn't work, you can also go back to what you're doing anyway.
Yeah, my partner's very good at this. But previously, when I talk about being unhappy, I was
Yeah.
with someone that didn't understand bodybuilding for a number of years. And now I'm with a bodybuilder. He
Yeah.
hasn't competed, but he's got pretty lean for a photo shoot and things like this. And he's really helped me with everything that you've pretty much just spoken about, that you've helped China with. And it's a night and day difference in the confidence I feel in going into a longer off season as well, because of course, you know, the body composition changes, and there's those initial changes like you've spoken about with reversing out. And then when you're heading into an off season, if it is going to be longer, it's like, you know, where's the ceiling for that? Is there mini cuts? Is there various other things? And it can be quite an unnerving time. But then when you throw in, should we go for a date night and go somewhere where you know you're going to like stuff on the menu, and you're like, I need to exhibit some control here, but still enjoy it. And then
100%.
when you can share that, it makes it so much easier.
Do you know something, right? This is me being totally honest now. I always understood, because, do you know Becky Dean?
Yeah.
Okay, I used to live with Becky Dean for a little bit, and she was probably the first, because she was in the peak of her off season with me when we were living together, and like I never really understood, like, the female psychology of putting on weight, like, because I've never really lived it, because, like, my ex wasn't into this world at all. Because in my head I was just like, yeah, no, but like, you don't look bad, but I will admit this, and I'm hoping I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. Females take it a lot differently to lads,
Very
like,
much.
an improving phase. And I think as a boy, as a male, like, you've got to respect that. It's like, you've got to expect that females might not feel comfortable in the bikini. Whereas, like, China always goes to me, "Yeah, but lads always look better in the off season." It's like, you never really, because you are the person in the off season, you never really look at it from a female's perspective. But living with Beckham and living with China, like, China's off season was a lot better than what her last one was. Like, it was easy for her to accept this when it was her last one. Her last one was very, very hard. But if I was going to give some advice to females, because I said I live with Beth, me and Beth are very, very close friends. I've seen her get a pro card and she pushed food in the off season. I've seen China push food and I've seen her get a pro card. Don't be afraid. Like, and your partner, if he or she is a nice person, will loves you for who you are, like, and understands what you're doing. Because I said, I've been in the same shoe where my partner didn't know what I was doing and couldn't get it, and it's so much harder. Whereas, like, China understands, I understand. We know the process. We know that. I know, for example, 6 weeks out, I'm not getting, well, probably from 10 weeks out, I'm not getting any attention. I'm getting fuck all, right?
Ali
So it's
who?
like, what was that?
Ali who?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm getting nothing, right. I get fuck all anyway, because everyone just thinks just I'm China's fella. That's what I like. That's what I'm known as. But it's like, I'm not getting anything. But I understand that and I know that. And then, as my opinion, it's like, that's my job, is to help you get there. But when your prep finishes, that's when you've got to show the people that you have neglected time. And again, that's another part of, like, bringing this back to, like, reversing out. That's something else. Like, the people that you've neglected for that amount of time, you've got to show them time now, because they should have been there for you throughout this process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now payback time, essentially, just by being yourself and showing up. And it doesn't mean you have to drink or go out for food, but just give them the time that you've neglected with them for so long.
Yeah, that's so good you said that. Me and Matt actually had a conversation not long after my last show of the
Yeah.
season, and you don't realize as well that you've got this tunnel vision and you're so focused on, you know, scale weight going down, seeing the next striation, getting to the show, and then you're fucked. Like, you know, my back was fucked and all of this, and you accept it because, like we've spoken about, it's a choice. This is what you're doing, and there's a reason behind it. But then we had a conversation after, and he was like, I just want to cuddle, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we were cuddling, but it's a different sentiment. It's a different feeling. And it really did remind me of how much, like you've explained with China, he just put me first all the time.
Mhm.
You know, it was get me to the stage and do anything he can to get me there. And even like my mum, the first time I'm able to go over there for a meal or something, she's so excited, honestly. Like she watches me eat and she's just like, how is it? She's thinking herself. And she'll get me like a little blueberry muffin from M&S because she knows I can scan it in my Fitness Pal. She's like, is it nice? Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
like, and it's a cathartic thing for me because I look at her and I think when she's seeing me getting pretty shredded, it must be so hard for her, you know, if
Yeah.
she's not used to it. And like you mentioned there, the people that you have to retreat away from a little bit, it's about giving back when you've got the energies to do that and noticing it as well and taking ownership.
100%. Yeah, because like you said before, but like you're still hugging prep, but it's like you don't want to.
Yeah.
You just sort of like just feel like it's like you're still in a relationship to somebody. It's like a pity pat in it. Do you know what I mean? But no, I think it's a big thing. It's like when once that's done and dusted, like it's something simple, isn't it? Where you just spend a little bit more time with someone. Because as we said before, you're not going to be doing your cardio, you're not going to be as regimented as what you were. And but I am a big thing as well. Like if you're in prep, you have to be like that. And I'm not saying you have to neglect people, but you it is a selfish sport, and people need to understand that and just accept it and not question it, not say why are you doing this, but should you be doing this? It's like just accept that that's what they're doing
Mhm.
and support. I think people again competing, especially reversing out or into the diet or in the improvement, is having a support network there as well because it's hard. It's hard for females, as we just discussed in that improvement phase, to go like, have I actually grown any tissue or have I just put fat on? Like that's a common question, isn't it? It's like China goes to me, it's like, have I actually put any size on? It's like, yes.
She definitely has.
Yeah, it's like yes. But it's like you see that a lot because you don't see it as much in the off season. It's like you might be stronger, but it's like okay. And then as yeah, it is. It's like that fingers crossed. It's like fucking hope this looks good on stage. But then like when you're going through prep, it's like having that support network there because times do get hard. It's like you do go to some low places. Like you go to some dark places where it's like fuck me, this is like really grim. I can't be asked even fucking getting out to let the dogs out for a piss. It's like you're that tired. And then in the reverse out of it, it's like having that support network to someone to go, come on, let's do this, or let's go to cinema, or let's go for a walk, breaking up that normality, that like routine that you've been in for such a long period of time of cardio, get steps in, trade, eat, go to bed. And
Mm,
it's like getting someone else just to have the courage as well, just to go, no, we're doing this here, or we're going for a spa, or we're going away for the weekend,
mm, mm.
and breaking that mindset because it will take someone else to potentially break it as opposed to you breaking it.
Yeah, and I think you do get married to feeling like shit. Like it's,
Oh
I,
yeah,
I mean, I'll admit I get off on it. You know, I quite like being the weird person that wants to just get shredded because you know, I can bring tunnel vision. I don't really know where it came from, but it's just something that I live for it. And then that's why, of course, you know, it's learning over my years. And like you said about experience, it gets easier to a certain degree. But like we said right at the start, every post show you feel very different. Like you don't really know what's gonna happen. It's like, why am I thinking these fucking weird thoughts? But I love how you said, you know, it's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's important that there's an element of ownership there, and you do reach out to people. And if I've said to people that I've spoken about sort of binge eating and this type of thing, like we say, it's quite common when you recognize you're doing it and speak to someone and put things in place, you know, rather than just keep doing it and then maybe sack your coach off and then go down into a pit of putting on 20 kilograms in 4 weeks. You know, there's got to be an element of taking that ownership, but it is hard.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to do.
Mm.
I think that's the hard part is it's very easy to catch yourself just doing that. And again, I'm very lucky in regards to like how I view food. So fact that I've never done anything like that, but I know I'm very few and far between how I view food, especially if people come to this industry. And it's like it's very easy to put on 3 or 4 kilos in a night, and then you could argue, and I don't say forward against this, potentially just stop weighing yourself daily, because you'll probably be able to relate to this as well. Like, you don't weigh yourself just once in prep, you weigh yourself like 3 or 4 times sometimes. Like, I got into a really bad habit, and I'll admit this, I don't think I've actually ever said this before, but like, I was getting up in the middle of the night to weigh myself.
It's warped, isn't it?
And it's like, I look at that and I go, that was fucking stupid. I could have been sleeping and would have looked better. But it's like, in my head, it's like, I was forcing pisses out to make sure that scale weight dropped down. You think about it, it's not gonna, it doesn't mean I got leaner. But you do get into these mindsets, and I like to think I'm quite experienced in this. But you do go to these places where you think things make logical sense, but they actually don't. They're quite stupid. And again, it's like, it is just looking back and go, well, that's silly. I'm not going to do that next time. But you do have to take some kind of responsibility for the stupid shit that you do.
I love that you've said that, because actually part of this series, AJ came on the pod and I touched on scale weight with him because I said, very similar to what we've spoken about, does it affect men as much as women in, you know, who he works with in himself and what have you? And he said, you know, he's got a bit of an emotional attachment right at the tail end of prep. It does get into that sort of realm. And I think just as much as females, males do have these types of behaviors around scale weight and various other things. But like you said, I've done some crazy shit to try and get the weight to look lower on the scale, but I'm not leaner, like you just said. You know, I've been for a piss.
Yeah. It's no, it's like, men are just as bad as females when it comes to all this shit. I would happily argue against if someone to disagree with that. I think it's probably a difference in regards to like what you get attached to, but males compare, 100% males compare. It's like, I would love the opportunity to just come off Instagram.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, but unfortunately my business runs off Instagram.
My partner's the same. He's like, if I could just chuck it off one day.
Especially, like, I love Instagram because, for example, me and you might have been able to communicate so much what we did on Instagram. I think it's a great thing. But also, when you're coming to the dog end of a prep or a diet phase or for a photo shoot, whatnot, you compare. It's like, am I lean enough? Am I this? Look, everyone looks shit out on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like, there's people go to me like, what do you struggle with most about like pulling out a prep? It was the fact of like, I know I look the best I've ever looked. I never stood next to people though to see where I fared. Like, how did I pose on stage? Like, I put a lot of work into it, but it's like, how did it actually look? That's the hardest part, like the unknown part. But like, I look good on Instagram, but I might not look good standing next to other people.
For sure. Yeah.
And again, this is like, the comparison nature is always going to be there as long as Instagram is going to be around. You do get attached to scales. Because like, especially when you're using assistants as well, it's like, why is the scale going up? Well, you have just increased your engine load.
So
So
many
it's like, that can happen, and then that fucks your head. It was like, I was natural until I was 27. And then I started my first cycle, the same as you, like, I'd done my first jab, I thought, so this is magical.
I'm like, am I a weirdo, or do other people?
Oh no, mate, it's like, I thought it was magical, and then I realised, fuck all happened, really. It was like, fuck's sake. But like, yeah, it was, being natty, in my opinion, was an easier process because it was a little bit more linear. Like, there was not as many things that you could do to change things. Like, I also wasn't really with a coach when I was natty. Like, I got a few friends to help me prep and whatnot. I sort of done most of it myself, really. I worked with Josh Bailey for a little bit, but then I've done the back end of it to myself. But it's like, there's less to manipulate and less to manage. It's just like, just more output, and he's lose a bit more body fat.
It's a completely different realm, though. It's so much more exciting being assisted. I mean, I'm not saying to any of the listeners you should be assisted, but for me,
mate, it's so much better.
I love it.
It's like, again, like, I'm not promoting it by any just mind you, but like, people go to, like, if people don't think I've took gear, it's like, look, I was 67 or 70 on stage. I walk around at 104 now, 103. It's like that's not come from like chicken and rice.
This is not normal.
No, it's like that's it's like in 3 years. It's like my condition's not too far off what like I'm not lean, but I'm not fat either. It's like
It's
that's
so
not
different.
chicken, rice, and protein shakes. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? It's like that is called a fair bit to test.
Yeah, and I love like my reverse out and my off season so far is going so much better for it to sit well and for me to do a longer off season because it's so much more of a favorable distribution of fat.
Yeah,
My muscle retention is so much better, and it's very hard to then go, oh, I should have stayed natty because
of
I just
course.
love this, you know?
Like it's like you can't say that's not fucking fun. And I don't care who you are. I don't think necessarily drugs are addictive, like
Yeah.
the steroids are addictive, but I think the performance side is.
Yeah. And you want to keep pushing that.
Of
That's where it
course.
obviously becomes tricky with, you got to have a coach that hopefully knows their shit because
Yeah.
you left your own devices. I'd
Mhm.
imagine in particular men, like you could really fucking get pulled into it.
100. Like that's the only thing I'm a little bit nervous of.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally transparent. It's not necessarily the aesthetic side of it. It's like I love like becoming better in exercise. I love getting a little bit stronger or executing better or seeing the development side of things. And you're living a life you don't think assistance helps with that. And it's like that'll be the hardest part. Is like because my goal would be after this show, I will probably just TRT
Yeah.
and run some legit growth because I'm not too sure the shit I
I
take.
love growth. I love
Yeah.
growth.
I will take I'll pay a little bit of money and get some pharmaceutical stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I'll probably do.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be pulling 260 probably. I'm not going to be like barbell rowing what I've done today. It's like that. I have to let go of that.
Yeah.
And then what you could argue is just like start your logbook again.
Mm-hmm.
And but that'll be the hardest challenge for me
Yeah.
is the performance side of things, not the aesthetics. Because I can manage that with food and training volume and all that. I can do that myself, but just not being able to be as strong as what I once was, that'll be difficult. And I believe that's potentially what brought JP back to the bodybuilding world was just not being able to do what he could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think that'll be difficult.
It's like our whole subject today, isn't it? Stepping away from a prep. It's hard because I always reference it as when you're doing something different to what you've been used to for a set period of time, you're stepping out your comfort zone like you are in a prep. So
Yeah.
when you're reversing out, you're stepping out your comfort zone because you've been tunnel vision. And actually, I argue to sometimes say that the reverse out into a growth phase is harder mindset wise because there's not that like definite goal per se.
100%. It's a very good way to word it because there's not a specific time frame that something's going to occur. It's a movable thing, isn't it? As well, it depends how you respond.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of prep for me, like it's well structured, but at the same time, it's like you've got to be very adaptive to how that person responds. But when it comes from a reverse point, there isn't really a specific timeline because you don't, and it'll be different from year to year as well. But depending on how that person responds, and especially if you're very tunnel vision and goal focused, that could be then another tricky thing where it's like, okay, is it going to be March the 20th or is it going to be April the 1st? When like I can start to do things that's like, well, depends how we look, depends how well you stuck to things. Because again, as you said, like you are going to potentially socialize a little bit more. And if you like, I don't really drink, but if you've gone out and got pissed, it's like, well, that might then move things back another week.
Yeah.
So again, I think that's a good point because like when you're doing a show day, the show is X date. You're working to X date, and then you go, okay, peak week is going to be X week. Whereas this reverse, it's like could be 3 weeks, could be 6 weeks, could be 8 weeks, depending on the individual in hand.
I also think I'm sure you'll agree from what we've said today. We're very of the similar mindset. Don't book in too many things for after your show because when you start overcommitting, you think, oh, I'm going to go for right. So a week after, I'm going to go for an Indian. A week after that, I'm going to go to Five Guys. A week after that, in the week, I'll go and do that as well. And then you're like, I don't know about you, but after a diet, sometimes you don't even know what you want to eat.
No, it's like 100% because like I get sick of cream of rice. Like I love cream of rice in prep because it's like the only sweet thing that you can fucking eat loads of.
And then you're like, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, it's like to be fair, this is the first time in improvement phase where like I've hammered it for a long time, I can still eat it. So maybe just manage things a little bit better this time. But It's like, I know there's going to get points in 4 weeks. Like, fuck that shit. Yeah. But it's like, you don't know what to eat because the thing is, like, the food's always going to be there. So you don't have to do everything at once. Like, Five Guys, fingers crossed, doesn't go bust. Like, that's going to be there in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or next week. I agree with like not booking too many things once. What I used to do, and this won't work for everyone, I used to book a holiday, say 2 months away from the show.
Nice.
And it was like, okay, I want to make progress, but it gave me enough time to come out of the health phase, like come out of the prep into a health phase, but make sure I still control things because you don't want to be fat on holiday. That was my mindset. I don't want to be fat on holiday, but I also know that I want to make progress.
Good idea.
So again, like that won't work for everyone. That might put people in the wrong mindset of I need to diet still until this holiday. But for me, it was just something where it's like, okay, that's my next target. I know I need to put on a little bit of body weight and a little bit of body fat, but I know I can't go over the top, so I can't go and eat loads of food. And that was just something that worked for myself. But there'll be loads of people who will do other little things. And I think it's a really, really good thing what you're doing with this podcast as well, where you're just getting people to be open and honest to talk about experiences because everyone is different. But some of my experience might resonate with some people. Some of your experiences might resonate with them. And then it's just an open and honest conversation because look, we all fuck up. Like I took fucking drugs to Finland and got fucking a €400 fine. And I don't know if I've got a fucking record because every single time I go to a passport thing now, it's like, are you here on pleasure or business? Like I'm just fucking here in the country to go and see the Eiffel Tower. It's like, yeah, it's like we all make mistakes, we all do stupid things, but just learn from them and move on and have fun as well.
Yeah, I love that. What a way to wrap up. It's always the message, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's a choice. But if you can have a bit of fun with it, make some memories. You touched on right at the start, the community vibes that you get. You pick up the right vibes from certain people in this, and it can be so, so cool to make lifelong friends. And, we're both open and honest people. And of course, if people do resonate with what you've said, Ali, are you taking coaching clients on? Where are you at the moment with business?
Yeah, like not many coaches are full. So it's like everyone's always taking. I love that when it's like they've got 5 spaces left. Yeah, and you've got loads of spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like of course I've got coach spaces, but the client has to like I'm at the point where like the client has to be sort of like the right fit now, and you get that from a conversation.
Yeah.
Like if I feel like someone's going to work out, whether they be a coach or whether they be a prep client or whether they just be a gym pop person wanting to get into great shape. Yeah, I'm always willing to take someone on, but they've just got to blend. I'm a big person of like you've got to have the right personality because there's a right coach for everyone, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's you. And I think you're doing a disservice. You take someone on that you know you're not going to get on with.
Yeah, I love that. You catch the vibe and then it's, everything just works. And it's just so nice when
Yeah.
you have clients like that, isn't it? But of course,
Oh,
as
of
well.
course. It's like because like I love having a laugh. Like for me, like the best thing is training. I love training, right? The set, right? You don't fuck around and piss around in the training set, but outside of it, fucking have a laugh. Do you know what I mean? Like you're there to have fun. You're there, especially get people that you love training with as well. It's like learn to smile. You're not going to fucking war. You're just going to do a set of hack squats and bicep curls.
Yeah, Matt, my partner said this earlier. It's so funny that you've just said that because he was like, in my old gym, we used to have a laugh between sets, and then, for the set, you really work hard, and then you can have a laugh between sets. And people used to say, "What? Why are you having so much fun in the gym? You shouldn't be doing that. Why are you laughing?" And he's like, "Come and do a set with us,
Fuck
then."
that. Well, imagine that. It's like honestly, when me and Beck used to train together loads, it was just like it was the biggest lol ever. It was just funny. You'd just say inappropriate shit, and like there'd be other people with us as well. But like, I knew what her goal was. She knew what my goal was. So like, you can't really fuck around when you're trying to get like the most out of the train set because that is important as well. But like, if you're in the gym for 2 hours, fuck being boring.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that. Like, look, don't get me wrong. When China's very focused, she's not the most social person within the gym. She's getting better. But like when she's 6 weeks out, you've got to have respect that she's not going to want to talk. Like she will just want to train. But when you've got a bit of time and you're in the off season, it's like learn to enjoy what you've actually probably got into the industry for and the business for. Most of us get into it because of training and the community in the gym and whatnot. It's like don't lose that love for it. Because like, look, China wants to go to the Olympia, and I'm going to probably speak out of turn for here, but the Olympia's not going to pay her bills. End of. It's like her job, her coaching, and her dentistry is going to pay her bills. It's like it is a cool achievement, it is a cool goal, but don't let it actually take away from the love of what you actually got into the gym for and the floor for.
And also going
Believe it
back
or
to
not.
being realistic, that's a lofty goal for China, and that holds, you know, a lot of pressure and a lot of thoughts and feelings that she'll be going through, especially getting closer to it. But like you just said there, you know, it's not going to pay the bills. That's the elite, as it were. So if you're going into
Yeah.
shows and it might be regionals, maybe you do the finals, that type of thing, it's
Yeah.
unless you're very lucky, it's not going to pay you. So enjoy this sport, enjoy what it can bring, and of course, suck it up when you need to.
Yeah, 100%. Like like if people say like don't you shouldn't have to suck up. It's like you fucking do.
Yeah.
It's like you fucking like I'm not a crier, but I cry sometimes in prep. Like I remember once I got into my car after doing 6 PT sessions, so this like 4 years ago. I drive an automatic and I couldn't remember how to drive, and I cried. For 10 minutes, I just cried, so I am so tired.
It's
And then
mental.
it's like you put your big boy pants on and then fucking drive home. But it's like you do have to suck it up. You do have to grind. People who think you can do this healthily are incorrect. It is an extreme sport, and if you want to get the best out of yourself, you have to take extreme measures, sorry. And that just has to make sure, as you said, you weigh up the risks and rewards, and you take it. Like I probably won't ever touch DMP. I've got ulcerative colitis. I can't fuck around with my GI too much, right? So that risk isn't worth it for me. So I will I will just make sure I just do not fuck up in a prep to the point if I ever have to get to that point. And that's again where it's like calculated, understand what your limitations are,
Yeah.
and then work out from there.
Yeah, for sure. And if you like the sound of, you know, how Ali's spoken today and his honest approach, then I'd definitely say reach out, because of course, like you said, you can jump on a consult and you work out whether you work as a good team. And that's what it's all about, you know. And I'm sure there will be people that listen and resonate with what we've rambled on about today. What a class duo we are, Ali. We're
Thank you
just
very much. I love this. That's very cool.
say it how it
Thank you
is.
very much for the plug as well.
And if you do listen and you do resonate, of course, share it on your Instagram stories and give us a tag. I'll put your Instagram handle in the description below. But thank you so much. This is exactly what I wanted from this episode. So thank you.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute legend. And I cannot wait to see China get peeled. Oh,
Well, you're looking forward to it more than me.
it's going to be sick. Yeah, yeah. Well, I can do it from an outsider's point of view.
I'm probably going to have to get used to the other bed.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, mate. I appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Later.